pushed
good?
it? You just pressed it? Alright, 1 second. Let me wait for the
This one
email.
on YouTube.
We're good?
She just pushed the button.
Oh,
Just
okay,
1 second.
good.
Okay, I can get the email.
I don't need my conversation blasted.
Yeah, that's why I'm not unmuting it.
Thank you.
Where you skis your business.
Correct, I don't need the whole world knowing that.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, we're now.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
All right, welcome to the public portion of the Chatham Township Committee Workshop meeting on April 4th, 2023. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First, we're going to start off with our first public hearing of citizens. Currently, the committee meeting room is open to the public, and we look forward to having you join us. Additionally, this meeting is being made available for public participation remotely. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during the public comment session by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please say your name, spell your last name, and give your street number. As a reminder, all public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, we will wait until you finish speaking before responding. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment during the public comments period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments, and duplicative written comments may be summarized. Were there any written comments?
No.
All right. Anybody here? I don't see anybody. Is there anybody online?
We do not have any hands raised.
All right. Well, then I will close the public hearing of citizens and move straight to the reports.
You want to start with Mr. Pavona?
Yeah, that sounds great. Mr. Favona, welcome.
Thank you. Come on up.
Yeah, you can come join us.
Oh, wow, really? Nice.
Hi everybody, I'm Tony Bavona. I'm chairman of the Board of Adjustment. I've been on the board. Kevin Tubbs nominated me, so that's at least 10 years. And I've been chairman for at least 5. I don't remember exactly.
Well,
how
thank
many.
you very much for all your volunteer time to this community.
Yeah, we really enjoy it. We like to be able to drive around town and say we approved that or we didn't approve that. And we do our best to keep the town.
Hopefully you don't see too much that you didn't approve.
Well, there's a few, but mostly what we like to do is if someone comes in asking for a mile, we offer them 3/4 of a mile. And most of them come in knowing, because their architect will tell them that ask for all you can.
Yeah.
And if you get it, great. If not, so we try to limit the size and scope of buildings, especially when there's neighbors involved. Last year we had 22 applications, all during COVID actually. We heard 13 of them, 3 of them withdrew, and the balance were carried over to this year. What we're seeing mostly is people adding pools and home offices. Almost all the home offices we approved with strict guidelines. One actually withdrew because there was a severe drainage issue in that neighborhood, and I think they got a lot of pressure from the neighbors, and they withdrew it because it was a totally separate building. For the most part, we keep in mind what effects the neighbors would have, what screening is involved, what lighting is involved. If it's an accessory structure, we tell them they cannot have toilets or anything like that. They can have a sink if they have a proper drain, but usually there's no water involved with a detached building. As far as pools go, a lot of the properties in Chatham are hardshipped because of slopes, because of angular lots, and most people don't ask for a whole lot. One family wanted a washer and dryer and a toilet outside so their guests didn't have to go through their house, and we did not allow that. There's like 3 things we really stick to, and that's building height, which is an average of 35 feet, no outdoor structures that have toilets or something that can be converted into a secondary living space, and 3 stories. Where 3 stories comes in is if a house is built on a slope and more than 50% of the basement is exposed, it's counted as a story. So even though it looks like 2 stories in the front, it's actually classified as 3 stories. So we work with the applicants and their architects to try to figure out a way to get 51% covered, so they can have a house they can grow with and not require variances. We also counsel the applicants on how to either eliminate a variance by moving something just a few feet, or adding a variance because if they make a mistake during construction and they're an inch over, they have a 3-month process again, because it's a initial visit, a site visit, a deliberation visit, and then a resolution visit. So if they screw up, they lose 3 to 4 months. So we do whatever we can to work with the people. If it's a simple thing like a pool they're trying to get in for the season, sometimes we'll have, if there's no complaints from neighbors, we will have a resolution drafted. And if we vote affirmatively, then we can read the resolution into the record that night, and they save a month, which is very important when it comes to pools. As far as recommendations, we have concerns about R4 lots that are 10,000 square feet, but they have similar setbacks to a R3, which is 20,000 square feet. And builders are buying old homes, knocking them down and putting the biggest possible house they can fit on the lot. Even though it's legal, it really takes away from the character of an older neighborhood.
Right.
It also, you're taking a $500,000 house and replacing it with a $1.8 million house, and now you're limiting the amount of people or the caliber of people that can afford to live in Chatham. So we would like to see either a massing regulation as far as square footage of a house compared to the square footage of a lot. We have that for the R3s, and they mostly conform, but not every R3 lot is 20,000 square feet, so that's where your hardships come in. But if you increase the side yard setbacks on a 10,000 square foot lot, they have to build something that conforms to the neighborhood. If you look at Chestnut right over here, you have 2 5,000 square foot houses sandwiched by a little 1,200 square foot house, and that house will never sell because it doesn't fit. Down on Longwood, the same situation. They knocked down small affordable capes and put in $1.5 million homes that are beautiful. They have no yard, but they don't fit the neighborhood. So we're just trying to get regulations that keep a starter neighborhood, and not a money pit or a profit maker for a builder.
Right.
So we're very concerned about that. We had concerns about corner lots.
I'm sorry, before you move on, can I just ask you, because I feel like floor area ratio has been coming up, for the past few years. Do you know what why that committees or weren't interested in floor area ratio in the past?
The only thing I can think is tax revenue. The more a house costs, the more it pays in taxes.
Okay.
Several towns have adopted it for the same reasons. They're just building McMansions, and people, normal people, regular people, who are not millionaires, can't afford to live in Chatham. Take advantage of the Chatham schools, the Chatham lifestyle, the safety, the security. They can't afford to live here. So that's why we would like to have just some sort of regulation to make it affordable to more people, because you want people that are going to come here, volunteer for committees, volunteer for coaches, help out in schools. And a lot of times if you're well off because you work your ass off, and you can't devote time. So we'd like to see a more diverse population here that will help out with volunteering and get involved, because they have maybe a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can't afford a house, they can't live here. Corner lots, we've seen this a lot, where a builder will buy a house on a corner lot that faces the side street and turn it so that it faces the main street, so they can build a bigger house. Corner lots are generally long and deep and shallow to the front to back. And they turn the houses sideways, so they have a 15-foot backyard and a 30-foot front yard, and like a 75-foot side yard. And it just, again, disrupts the flow of a neighborhood. So we would like to see some sort of regulation that would help that situation, so the house stays in a normal looking location and not crammed in a tiny lot. And have a, you know, your backyard is from there to here. 75 feet long, but 15 feet wide. And then side lots are huge.
Does that happen because because, no, our zoning says you have to have 45-foot backyards at least. Are they calling the backyard a side yard?
Yes.
Yes.
I see,
That's how they get this.
Yeah.
So it's a backyard even though it's the side of the house.
Correct.
And the
Because
front door of the
they're
house.
saying that the address is, say, Southern Boulevard as opposed to J Road. Where if it was J Road, the house would be smaller or something where it fits the neighborhood, and you have a normal yard. There's several all over town. Right around here on Dogwood and Myersville, there's another one that's, they took one large lot, put two large houses on it, turned the one on Dogwood sideways, and he has a 15-foot backyard. And it just, I mean, it's a beautiful house, but it's awkward looking. There was one other, brought the wrong glasses, so you might have to hold this, but.
Oh, you mentioned the home office space.
Yes,
Right
that-
now, they're only allowed home office space for professional persons attending human ailments.
Right, so that is a business home office space, like a dentist office or a doctor or something like that. But a lot of homes will convert a bedroom to a home office because you work from home now. But if you have a 3-bedroom house and you and your spouse and 3 kids, you can't afford to give up the bedroom for an office. So a lot of people are doing minor additions, small bump outs, so they have a place that they can work and not lose a bedroom. So we have been hearing and accepting more of those, as long as they don't go crazy where they want the pool and the office space, and like I said, you don't ask, you don't get. But most of them have been very reasonable, very small spaces, just a bump out, and we work with them to see where it can go, where it is least visible to the neighbors, and it's still workable. But we're not gonna let them put like a kitchen or something like that in there. It's strictly an office space. So we've been seeing a lot of those, and not necessarily being lenient, but being understanding for the need. That and swimming pools.
So, but they come to you because it's a variance request, so maybe they're going over on set-asides or heights or whatever it might be. So, but if they're compliant and they don't need to go to the zoning board, then they can be putting in those home offices. So really, when they come to you, it's the variance, and you're saying a home office, where normally maybe it's not enough of a justification because it's not written in, that you want to make it more of a justification for having that variance potentially. Because you still got to approve the variance, whether
So
we
we still
call it.
have to approve it.
Yeah.
And I don't really think we need any legislation for it. I just want to bring it to your attention that there are additions going up for that purpose, and not just for, you know, I have a 5,000 square foot house and I don't want another 5,000 or another 500 feet on this side for a library. It's people with smaller homes on tight lots
Mhm.
that don't wanna move, but they're forced to work from home 2 or 3 days a week, and before it was, 5 days a week. My house, I converted a bedroom. I had to put one kid up for adoption, but we converted a bedroom for a home office, and a lot of people don't have that luxury. So I'm just letting you know that that is something that we are working with applicants for. And believe me, most of them are a couple hundred square feet. And then the problems are, R3 zone is 20,000 square feet, and you're allowed, I forget what the ratio is, but you're allowed a certain ratio of impervious coverage or lot coverage. And a lot of the lots are angular, hilly, undersized, and if they go for, one person had 98 square feet, he wanted to just bump out this little section, but he was maxed out because his lot was undersized. So a lot of people are not asking for a lot. That's why most of the stuff we have gets approved, but we have conditions that they must apply to, or abide by, which is screening, fencing, anything so it is the least impactful to their neighbors. And very rarely do we have a case where neighbors show up in opposition. It happens, but most people will bring a neighbor, say, we're all for this. And one other side note is when you get a builder who buys an old person's home or something like that, they want to come in and build the biggest possible thing they can on the lot. So I've started to ask them, is this your house or is it a business house? And if this is my dream home, my family's coming over, we're all gonna do this, I'm a little bit more lenient with their requests. We have one on Longview, I think. An old nasty house, been abandoned, the yard is nasty. The idea of someone coming in, knocking it down and building something nice is great for the neighborhood. However, he wanted to make, it would actually be over 3 stories tall. The wall facing or adjoining neighbor would be almost 40 feet tall, because you take an average for the height. It doesn't have to be 35 feet max, it's an average. And so we told him to redesign it, because it was not his primary home. It's just a business that he's gonna make a profit on and put this monstrosity in a little tiny neighborhood. We sent him back to redo it, and he hasn't come back yet. I had a thing right around here on Myersville, where I asked the guy, is this a business or is it your home? No, it's my home, my home, my home. So we allowed it to be bigger, taller, within, the legal limits. And as soon as done, he sold it. And the neighbor next door was livid, because now he has this gigantic wall where you're supposed to have a neighbor. So those are the type of things we look out for. And that's pretty much it. We have, I think we have a full crew now. We just brought on Mrs. Sood. I think we're full. I think Mr. McHugh might be leaving. But the people who are on the board, they like it. It's not overwhelming. They like being involved in the community. They ask good questions. We have a good variety of backgrounds.
Wow, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your volunteerism into the community. I appreciate your time here this evening to answer all of our questions and to let us know everything that's going on. Do you have any other questions or anything pressing for us?
No, I think that covers it, those couple items. I would like to say that we've come up with a nice program for the cell towers. If you drive other towns, you see the cell towers are all haphazard, they're overcrowded, they got black wires on silver poles, and we've come up with a nice little design where everyone's the same. It's a nice brown enclosure. The wires match the towers. We make them paint the antennas the same color as the tower, so there's nothing to draw your eye up to see that there's 15 antennas on top. And I think we're one of the few towns that have put effort into it, because we really don't have much of a say with telecommunications. And they just say, well, this is where it's gonna go, and
Right.
handle it. But we've worked with a lot of people, and we're not seeing anything new, but now they're updating stuff, so they have to come in for a variance because the antennas are slightly bigger. But they still abide by all of our conditions, and if you drive around Chatham, you really have to look to see if there's a cell tower, if you're looking ground level and not up, and I think we've done a good job of that. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on. Should we go, that's what I was gonna say.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go over to our tax collector.
Yes, so, Mayor, we've got Anne Marie, come on up. She's
Wonderful.
our new tax collector. You appointed her, I believe the appointment was made in February.
Yes.
Officially, she started, sorry, have a seat, Anne Marie.
Hi,
And
welcome.
so,
Thank you.
she provided her first report to you, which was included in the packet. So I asked her to come here so she could introduce herself to you. You can see her, get to know her a little bit, and she can answer any questions about the report. But there's nothing necessarily unusual. She did work quite hard to, because we had a transition period with no collector and some staff filling in, and she worked very hard over the last 2 months to make sure that all the numbers match up.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're
I hope everything's been going well here.
Yes, absolutely. I love it so far. So good.
Wonderful.
So much so
Great
that she keeps bringing
great
us
staff.
treats and snacks to show
Oh,
us
that's
up.
so nice.
Yeah, just a little chocolate here and there. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Does anybody have any questions for Anne Marie or her report or anything?
Really, appreciate it though.
Yes, and I appreciate
Nice to
you
meet
coming in.
everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming here and meeting us. I know this is time nobody wants to spend their evenings.
That's okay. Not a problem.
But she's very customer service focused and oriented. She's been great with
Wonderful.
all the residents coming to pay their taxes and utility bills. So we are lucky to have her. Thank you very
Well,
much.
since you took her time to come here, I'll
Yes.
ask a question.
Yes.
So it's always nice to have a fresh look at processes. Are there recommendations that you would make to improve any processes? At this point, I realize it's early on.
So,
Well, we've been talking about the mailings. You know, that's been a big thing. So, you know, she's been highlighting things, and during our one-on-ones, she's been bringing them to my attention. But namely is the printing and stuffing and mailing of bills, which we're looking
things to save time, things to save money,
We love
you
that.
know, things to, bring things to current times with technology, maybe more communications with residents in the future via email, text, reminders.
Wonderful.
To try to prevent them from being delinquent. We can be proactive. I'm always a proactive person, not a reactive person.
And she's one of those is promoting, doing more of an effort to promote the direct withdrawals, so that
Mhm.
way people don't have to spend their time and effort to come in here or mail their payments. So that's one of her next initiatives.
Yes.
She keeps saying, Z, we gotta let people know about this, and so we're hoping to tie that into that mass notification system as well that I want to set up with our website.
Does that cost taxpayers anything, even if it's a nominal fee? Like is there like a service charge or
For
convenience
ACH?
charge for doing it that way?
So ACH is free. We just set them up in a file in our system, and we load a mass file to TD Bank, and it just grabs the payment amount from their account and puts it into our account. It's just, that's the best way to go, because if they pay online, there's a service fee. For credit cards, nearly 3%. We
Yeah,
never
that's
encourage
what
that.
I'm trying to avoid.
And
because-
the online check is only $1.95, so that's a good way to go as well, but ACH is like kinda out of sight, out of mind. You never have to worry about getting a bill, because the system will say, here's what you owe. We remind you a week in advance that the money is gonna be withdrawn with the amount, and it's just easy on both sides. It saves time, mail, from opening mail or having someone drive here and come and stand in line.
Yeah, well, I think definitely something worth promoting, so I think there's a general perception that like, if I pay online, it's gonna cost me 3% or something like that.
Yeah.
But I realize it's become so normal these days that
Yeah.
usually you can find a way around that.
So for anyone watching online right now, contact Anne Marie to set up your ACH free
We live in
ACH
such a
payments.
fast-paced world, we gotta offer ways to make things more easy and more efficient
So
across the
right now,
board.
residents have to fill out a paper copy and hand it in. Could we move
We're
that to
hoping to-
online? Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great to sign up.
That's
for
the
this
goal.
each online.
We do have
That's
it
the goal.
online, it's just that I think we require like an actual signature, they can scan it to us.
Oh, okay.
Scan it back with the actual signature authorizing us to take their funds, we need to have that on file.
Okay.
We can put it in a PDF form, we don't have to.
Yeah, there's
have-
ways to digitize the
Yeah, we
process,
just-
so hopefully with our new website.
We just
we'll
need their
be able to do that.
signature.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks, Anne Marie.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Have a
Welcome
good
to Chatham
evening.
Township.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and everybody get home safe.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
So we can start back from the top now, Mayor,
Sounds good.
since, there's very few in terms of action items for this agenda, it was mostly reports. Under administration, I'll turn it to you, Mayor, on the first one, which was the, resolution for a VA center.
Yeah, this was reached out to me, Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill's office as well as Congressman Tom Keene's office jointly, are advocating for a local Veterans Affairs Center, and are reaching out to towns, asking for, if they're in support of it. I figured, why wouldn't we be in support of this? So I sent around the resolution for it, and I figured we can add it to the agenda.
Sounds good.
Okay. We will add it.
Okay?
Alright, sounds good, we'll add it
Yep.
to the next agenda then. The next item, last minute add-on, I apologize for that, but, our, Alliance coordinator just emailed us today about this grant. It's an annual process that we go through, to authorize and extend, the contract with this, the way it works with the county to the state for these grants, monies that come through LACADA and JACADA to support the municipal alliance. So, they need a resolution to authorize that submission and support, and so they sent us that documentation today. Greg forwarded it. Unless there's any concerns, it would just be a continuation of our existing arrangement. And it's a joint effort with the borough.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Under the clerk, he submitted his report. Any questions, or discussion item for you there? No.
My job is very routine.
Okay, construction, there is a statistical report that the tacos prepared, for this month. Our construction official started on, he started yesterday. So for the next meeting, he will be here, and, there are some things already that he's been identifying to sort of what you were asking Anne Marie, as far as streamlining the process or finding efficiencies or new ways of doing things. He's already been doing that, which is great, so I asked him to make sure that he documents it, and he'll provide a report to us for next month. But for this month, you do have the statistics, and I know you had some questions for the last month as far as numbers, dollars and cents are concerned. But once he gets acclimated, I'll make sure that he, can address those for you.
Yeah, based on the, reports that the CFO sent, it looks like we're at a normal run rate. So I think she sent 155,000 year-to-date for UCC fees.
Right.
And that would be like, 50 a month, which is the normal run rate.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, but it's seasonally adjusted, so that still is high. You know what I mean? 'Cause it's, you run.
Less than the winter.
Yeah. So cause you're 50 a month,
Yeah.
600, so.
I was more worried because we had about 100 in the first month, and then we had
Yeah, I know what you mean.
15 and 20,
Yeah.
it was, didn't make sense, so.
We're not on that pace, we're not 100 a month, right? Yeah, so that's.
Yeah. And nothing can be predicted, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay. For engineering, we do have the report from Mr. Rushke, but also a memo concerning his road list. That road list, just to clarify, was done in consultation with our DPW director and our sewer utility personnel as well. There were obviously some certain adjustments made based on traffic, length to fit within the budget, some conditions under the road that maybe need to be part of a longer strategy or larger strategy. But overall, this is the road list. As we are going through the budget process and determining exactly what our capital improvement fund also would look like, we may be able to add 1 or 2 more roads to this list. And I do want to highlight that we also did get a grant from the state for safety that was included in your package. That's the pedestrian safety and ADA improvement project. I just want to make sure that we highlight that at this meeting and for the public to know that we are going to be undertaking about $375,000 worth of project to improve crosswalks and ADA ramps throughout the township.
375,000, I thought it was,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the grant, that's
Fine if it's a grant, for some reason I thought it was a lot less.
I know,
must
I
have
got,
misread
I
that.
got a call, I got a call last week.
Yeah, no, it was a $375,000 grant
Awesome.
for,
Yeah.
I have the, if you want more information, I have the whole grant package, I can pull that up, but it's quite a number of crosswalks and intersections that we were gonna take care of, so.
Wonderful.
Yep. That's very exciting.
And they're all identified already?
Yes, they are all identified. When I got here, I was just very concerned because we have crosswalks mid-block. Some of them just lead into a person's front yard, not really a curb cut. Some of them aren't angled, some of them are faded or not striped to the standards that you want. So we want to make sure that people that are crossing crosswalks, children, elderly, the disabled, all of them can use the crosswalks safely. So that entails having ADA ramps as well. So that's where you kind of see that red bumped up with a curb cut. We have a lot of crosswalks that just don't lead into anything. And so we had engineering and DPW identify all of our crosswalks that are within our jurisdiction, look at those, and prepare that as part of the grant application.
There's, I would say over a year ago, the planning board had begun to mobilize and look at the circulation element, right, for the master plan. And it sort of was like a stop and go. From my understanding, historically, it was kind of a stop and go history, right? Some people spend some meaningful amount of time looking at it, gets presented, goes nowhere, and it happened again, I think just when I got on the board. It dawned on me the circulation, well, that was the other thing. So then there was a discussion with Frank, because Frank's got some intimate knowledge, what the sidewalks look like, what the circulation element actually looks like, and it just never gets anywhere. And I would think that something like this, considering the scale and monies involved, would have been done part and parcel with a circulation element that's updated, relevant, and being enacted by the board and the committee, as opposed to just, I mean, it's great to get the money that's there, take it, but I think we have to be looking at it a little more intelligently. Say, okay, you know, here's the element, here are the vulnerable areas, or here are the high priority needs, and then you know, procuring money to attack it that way, as opposed to just a little bit more reactive.
No, I mean, that's part of how it was done. I mean, these aren't crosswalks, new crosswalks we're installing. These are based on crosswalks that are already in town and that we're just making safer. So certainly if we want
Just
to.
putting ADA ramps in.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about strategic, starting in an area and building.
Right.
it.
These were already decided, these were already already got grants for them.
But I'm assuming some element of what Mike just described went into it, like the first one done's not gonna be out in the middle of nowhere, it's gonna be somewhere.
I mean, I could
near
provide
Southern
you a
Boulevard
list
School or
of.
something where the most crossing happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly, I'll provide you a list of, all those intersections, or rather the crosswalks, and, I'll circulate the grant application.
And I believe this has been somewhat ongoing, because there was, those same sort of ramps and things were added on Southern by the police station, and it's been elsewhere in town. There's sort of like a bumpy mat that gets added, that's.
Yeah. It's at the county.
Well,
road.
those are county roads, so the county would do those.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're doing them on our township roads.
Did we have a contribution? Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Do we have like 37,000 we're putting towards the project?
Maybe.
That's what I think. Yeah, that was the only number I saw.
Yeah.
For this, is that what Steve?
Yeah, so that's why the 300, I mean, yeah, we want more money. but-
It was like
That's why I wasn't-
376.
Yeah, we requested 376 and we got 375.
Okay, cool.
Drop the ball on that thousand.
Right.
Price match.
Well, I mean, so anecdotally, you know, I had a conversation with someone who had I think I mentioned this to you, the Girl Scout who's now long graduated from Chatham, but she had advocated for, as part of a Girl Scout project, or whatever the senior Girl Scout project is.
The old award.
Yeah, had advocated for, what I thought was fantastic, an installation of a sidewalk that goes from, on Fairmount, from Southern, almost all the way down to the cemetery.
Mhm.
The monies had been procured, and I think it was federal money at the time, and that went nowhere. And so when I asked around, just to understand what happened to, I mean, the money was there, we did not take it, for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And so it's these types of things that, absent a thought out circulation element, right? And a strategy that we're actually all looking to affect, we don't really, I mean, it was like federal money there that just came and was unused, untapped.
That's an old grant,
Yeah,
I can't
I
speak
understood,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, I've heard anecdotes about why that wasn't carried through, but again, that's just hearsay, I was.
But I think, so, I mean, what I hear is the circulation is atrocious, and it is. I mean, you've got, children can't walk to school in
Mhm.
good chunks of the neighborhood, right? Children can't walk safely. And it's something that I think
Yeah, so hopefully this
really
is gonna
woefully-
help that.
woefully under-investigated.
Yeah, this is gonna help that for sure, especially along Fairmont, Myersville, and River. It's, you know, it's gonna be a portion of the overall picture to
Make
try
it
and help
safer
that.
too.
Yeah.
I had sent in some questions about, road paving, but then I'd gone back and kinda looked at last year, and, I was wondering what had happened with the county, so the county roads, cause it seemed like the report they read to me that it was going to be, basically Southern was getting done.
So, the county, last I heard, was pretty much not giving us the time of day this year.
Yeah, and looking at emails from last year, it looked like they had promised, they had gone to the western edge of Stonehenge, and they said they were gonna finish that, and then they were gonna do Green Village Road. We had a covered
They
road
won't
around.
do it this year. Last I heard from them, it was just like, this is our plan. Like, there's no real, I begged them last
stop
year
at
to do
Stonehenge?
Shumbike.
Stonehenge, yeah.
Begged them, and they did. And then I had to beg them even more to extend it, cause they were only gonna stop right before the worst part of Shumpike.
Yeah.
And so I got them to push it off a little bit more, but this year they're like, okay, we did enough from Chatham Township, we're good.
Yeah.
So I'll try again next year.
Yeah, because, and then Fairmont too, I mean, we have, it's coming up. All right, and then,
Fairmont's unpassable.
yeah.
Yeah, that too.
It's unpassable.
Yeah, landscapers are out, get that.
And then I was looking at our road rankings here, or the numbered list, and it just struck me, last year we had a 2022 list, and then we had a projected for 2023 list. And of those roads that we had projected for 2023, one of them made it into our category B here, which is recommended for resurfacing. And the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are elsewhere on category C. And so specifically I'm talking about Woodlawn, Wexford, Ferndale, Mountain View. Those were on our 2023 list. And this is less about like nitpicking which, you know, where they should rank or what they should do, but like what is our process exactly? Because if it seems to me that, I mean, it flows logically that if we have group C here, then, you know, in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, would seem like those would be the next roads that we would wanna do for need. Of course, that budget has to be calculated in, and weather, and, you know, whatever might have happened. But I'm wondering about our process on this. Because I have, that's one concern, and then the other concern I have is like, if you look back at the historical data we have, a road, and this one is really, if we do have more money and we're looking at a road, like Club Road is number 18 in Group C. Club Road is in considerably worse condition, as is Valley View Road. They're basically, from my, you know, just looking at those two roads are both prior to 2010. We have no data on them, so there's, I'm sorry, not no data. Everything we have is like 2010 and later has been touched, but those two roads are not dated that. And those two roads are in similar condition and in much worse condition than anything we have in B. So I'm kind of wondering like what our process is exactly.
I apologize because I'm looking for, I thought I emailed you in response to your question, and I don't know why it did not go through, so I apologize for that, but.
It could be maybe they have to open up some of those worser roads, they don't wanna pave them if they're gonna be putting in a line, a gas line or utility.
So I'll explain, there is a document that a company was hired to do a ranking of all of our roads. They did sort of like infrared, I don't know, they did drive-through.
Thermography and then the road
Right.
ranking, the CRI.
Correct.
John explained that last year.
Yes, so that was what I believe the list from last year, projecting for this year, entailed. So when I came in, unfortunately, that was not put into a spreadsheet that we'd all look at and then work off of. My experience has been, and what I like to do is I asked engineer and DPW to then take from that list the top 20 and reevaluate those at the beginning of the year, because conditions change. Plowing, snow, traffic, a bunch of things. So, you know, essentially you've got, let's say, 100 roads, I'm just using this round numbers, 100 roads, this is the ranking, and yeah, we're gonna go down that list. But because of the variation every year, you wanna make sure that, you know, one road that got worse since that first list was done is not staying at the top or at the bottom. So we take the top 20 roads, review those again in the field with our engineer and DPW crew, and then adjust that list, and that's what informed this current list. So you're always updating and making sure that that list that was done is not just stale and based off of data and observations from 1, 2, 3 years ago. So we're gonna keep doing that every year. At the beginning of the year, revisit after, you know, the snowfall and the winter's over, revisit the next 20 on that list and constantly keep updating it. So essentially you're fine tuning that list and making sure that as conditions change, you've got the roads that really need it the most. Now, what factors into that are if there's any utility work, curbing, drainage issues, any other reported issues that come up that aren't just able to be seen from a numerical analysis, that also is gonna get factored into adjustments on the list. Then obviously, based on the budget, let's say you've got a $500,000 budget and you can pay 500 linear feet, and you've got 4 roads that cover 400, and you need a road that's 100, but the next one on the list is, let's say, 200 feet, you're gonna take maybe the next 1 or 2 down to fit within that budget.
I mean, the new information on here, I don't recall traffic volume being on here, so when I looked at, you know, the ones that were, he explained kind of the first 4 that had a worse rating, and then the other ones, where they were moderate, the ones that were picking moderate use, these were low use, so I just assumed that was kind of the Old Farm Road, Southwood Court, Woodmont Drive were all low use roads, so they were comparable in terms of scores, asphalt rating, but then the usage was less. So that was new information, so that's kinda what I went off of.
Yeah, so he
in
put
terms of
together a
others.
preliminary list also, and then sent it to Rich, and Rich weighed in on in terms of what is the priority based on that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
All right.
I mean, it just seems to me though that if we're gonna, if last year we put as our runners up, right, our next like sort of on deck roads were Woodmont, Wexford, Ferndale, and Mountain View, I mean, that was presented, and then this
I
year
don't
it's like,
remember that
okay,
being presented.
okay.
I don't remember seeing that.
Oh,
Yes,
probably
it was a
scoring
test.
wise, but I don't think there was an assumption that they were next up. I think it was more, you know, this is how everything scores and this is where we're gonna spend our money, but,
Yeah, no, and
yeah.
things can change, of course,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, I'm saying I reviewed the deck today of what we looked at last year, but what I'm saying is that how it shuffles down to, you know, number essentially 28 from where it was the next 3 or 4. It seems to me like there's something that we could do with the process. And the reason I'm talking about this is just because when you're knocking on doors and you're talking to residents, this is one of the things they care about. They care about, you know, what road's going next, or, hey, my road's not been paved in, you know, 36 years, or, you know, and there are roads like that. And, or we got micro-paved in 2010, but the road has never been paved prior to that, you know. This is something people care about, and we had talked a little bit about making some sort of predictive, you know, map or way for, that people can look forward, or a way to inform a future committee. It just seems that we're not there yet, and I would certainly be willing to work on a process that would make more sense, or that would get to be.
Well, I guess I see it as, and I found the email I did send to you, and so I kinda explained all that to you. I believe it came in at 11:22 this morning. But I did ask, if you've got roads that you feel are in worse condition, let me know, and I'll discuss them with the engineer and the DPW staff, and if it needs to be adjusted, we'll certainly adjust it if they're worse. But as far as the process goes, I do feel there is a process. If you're looking to tell the public, here are the roads that are gonna be paved each year for the next 10 years, or
Yeah, no,
even
it's
1 or
not
2
gonna be
years.
possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
not
think
possible.
you should be making any commitments other than we're gonna be trying to budget for $500,000 a year to repave roads, and, you know, certainly there's transparency. You know, when I was an elected official, and then even as an administrator, I believe in that transparency of showing people where your road sits on the list, but understand with the caveat that the conditions can change, and it's subject to adjustment, certainly.
Of course. And so if you want one road that I would give you that really you should really look at is a Club Road, and then very closely after that Valley View Road. And those go off of neighborhood that we paved almost completely last year, left these off. And those roads, we don't have a history on them according to a map of data that were given last year. And so in other words, they haven't been touched since prior to 2010, according to the information that we've been presented, and they were previously much higher on this list.
Okay, I will take a look at those.
All right, move on to,
Finance?
what's the next, finance?
Sorry, let me just get back to the agenda. Yes, Mayor. Finance reports presented. It is, again, obviously, we're operating under the temporary budget, so keep that in mind as you look at these numbers, but nothing unusual there. We did adjust, as you know, we did an amendment to the temporary budget at the last meeting, so that way, some of the larger bills, leases, agreements that folks like DPW, police have can be paid without interruption of service.
I had sent some questions in about Bill's list, and one was specifically about the water jetting and the use of our certain segregated funds for for Edgewood. So in other words, we have a stormwater mitigation fund. We had previously applied it, and I was given the answer that the finance committee would look at that and then would evaluate use of those segregated funds for.
We're working on scheduling a meeting. I think my sister reached out to you today about that for,
Yep.
I'd say the 20th maybe?
It's in a couple of
Something like
weeks.
that, so.
Okay. Well, this is like, to me, this is like super important, and it's the segregation of funds again, So if we have, I'll give you an example of the water pollution control plant. If we're properly applying the I&I study to the water pollution control plant and the study is $75,000, that takes pressure off the operating budget if the water pollution control plant is properly paying for that I&I study. And similarly, to the tune of, $11,000, the stormwater mitigation fund, which has grown from last year to this year, looking backwards, of course, so I'm talking about the annual financial statement, but from the previous annual financial statement to this annual financial statement, stormwater mitigation fund has increased and, grown. Those funds should be used to, mitigate stormwater. So if we're gonna do an $11,000 jetting of a, sewer system, stormwater sewer system, stormwater control system, I think that we should appropriately use those funds to do that. And I've identified these kind of things on the bills list and to apply the correct account. And so if this is gonna be reviewed, I would love to hear the feedback on what's determined about that. I don't understand really exactly why it would have to be reviewed or why this whole committee wouldn't be weighing in on how the funds are used in the budget, as we do weigh in on the budget.
In the past, it's always been the finance committee handles those issues as well as the budget, and then it's presented to the entire committee when it's finalized.
Well, specifically, that didn't happen in the past. It was actually, these are bills list items, and then I've asked about the bills list items, and then we've talked about it.
And we've offered probably 100 times to sit down and meet with you and discuss those items.
The bills list items?
Any of these finance items, literally any of them, we've offered you so many times to sit down and come in and meet with me, with Z, with Deb, and you've yet to provide a single time that you're available.
No, that's not true, but let's assume that is true. I'm presenting right now. We are meeting right now.
Right, and that's not the time to go through, like, we don't have all night. We have all, I respect everybody's time here way too much to be going through item by item by item by item by item on a bills list.
But I'm not asking you item by item. I'm saying to you that I emailed you 25 days ago, and then I'm asking for an update on what happened to my previous email. When I was told that the finance subcommittee would handle it, and I'm asking, and
Right.
now I'm being
So
told, what I'm being
The-
told
we're-
is that
we have
in a
meetings
pocket-
scheduled.
Update was, he said he had a meeting scheduled.
Right.
Right, so approximately
So-
20 days from now, there will be a meeting about it. I understand, that's the
If you
update.
want to proceed with this, you can schedule a time with Z, with Deb, with anybody. But our finance committee, which is me and Stacy and Z and Deb, excuse me, the 4 of us have meetings scheduled. And we also have to make sure, we do have, our CFO is out of town at the moment. So we have schedules that we're all trying to accommodate.
I understand,
And
I have a
so,
subcommittee meeting tomorrow morning that I'm attending.
great,
So,
but my point is that we have meetings scheduled. If you want an update on that, we'll let you know after we have the meeting. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but this is an issue that goes back to July of 2022.
When you were on the finance committee.
Precisely.
So I just don't see your point.
Because it wasn't handled by the finance subcommittee, it was handled by the entire committee at the time. And I spoke
don't
about
believe
it
that's the case.
in public session, and I spoke about it on this dais.
I don't believe that's the case at all.
Well, you can go to the July meeting, you can go to the June and July meetings when I talked about this very issue with that, and
What are you asking us to do?
I'm asking I'm asking why segregated funds that couldn't be applied for specific uses in bills lists that I've questioned under prior bills list, and then reiterated my questions via email. Now, in this workshop meeting, some weeks and months on, why isn't this not resolved? Or how can it be resolved?
So you want it to be resolved your way, okay. Again, the finance committee is scheduled to meet in a couple of weeks to discuss this.
To take the money from these different funds.
If that's the
it's legal.
appropriate way.
Yep.
We may not agree, but that's okay. we need to meet to discuss it. That's all I'm saying. And once we do, I don't see any problem, we'll let you know.
Okay, so I heard you say you don't see there's any problem, and you'll let me know
I said I
otherwise.
don't know. I said we have not met to
So
discuss.
that meeting will probably be in like 3 weeks, and then there'll be an
It'll
answer.
be, we'll probably, we can add it to the next workshop meeting to fill in, give an update.
How much money are we talking about, segregated funds?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of 2022 that we've applied in different ways.
For
No,
the
no,
INI
Just the
study?
INI
Just-
study, just the INI study.
Again, we have to sit down and look at it.
I don't think we're spending hundreds of
I don't think
dollars
so
on
either.
the INI study.
Correct.
I don't think that's the case at all.
Okay, how much did the INI study cost? Just that. I asked
Okay.
for just that to be
Again,
moved.
I'm not looking at these numbers right now. We need to
Mayor,
have a
I'm sorry.
meeting to discuss.
You can pull it, it's on the budget, it's its own item, that alone.
Okay. Again, we're meeting in a few weeks. There's nothing else to update. So we'll let you know after we meet. The next item is the police.
Mountain View bus stop.
Yep, the chief provided a memo on the Mountain View bus stop in response to questions by Committeeman Lois for an update on that, and that was provided. And the chief provided a report, but because we had the township committee meeting on the first Tuesday, he didn't have time for the agenda packet to provide the stats, so he provided them to us yesterday or today, and I forwarded those along through Greg. So you have those stats as well. So
Great. Yep, I read that.
thanks for your patience on that.
Sounds great, sounds like it's working out well.
Yep. And next is Public Works.
Yes, two contracts that need extension. The originals and some historical documentation was provided in the packet. The first one is our snow plowing contract. That's with a third-party vendor, Galbraith, provides for some extensions on an annual basis. We want to get ahead of the curve on that, so we're not waiting until the fall. It was included in your packet. They've been doing a great job. DPW highly recommends them and asks that we extend that contract for yet another year, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did they do everything they agreed to do with regard to that one road out there? I forget which street it was. There was
It was that,
Oh, where we
over by Ormond,
Yeah,
where there was like a
two
private
homes, yeah.
development that was not getting municipally plowed.
We did that,
Highview.
we did a developers agreement.
Oh, that's with that gentleman.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Highgate.
Yes,
Highgate,
I
yeah.
can't remember the name of it. Ron Gunn, yes.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that's being handled fine. DPW had to go out there a number of times this season, and we submitted a bill to them, but we had them put in escrow so we could withdraw from
Perfect.
escrow. So it's working out fine. And then the other one is on the Passaic Valley sewage contract for sludge.
Didn't snow very much here.
No, we lucked out. It was mostly brine that we billed for, brining the roads, but, that's still a cost nonetheless. The other item was this, sludge contract, pulling that up, but the documentation was there as well. This goes back to 2018. The contract expires, this summer, and DPW and WPC wanted to extend that contract for yet another 5 years to provide for, sludge handling with PVSA. Unless there's any concerns there. Okay. That's all for Public Works and Recreation. Tax collector and tax assessor, we went over tax collector, but Recreation and tax assessor, the reports are provided. We spoke with the tax assessor in executive session. I don't think there's much else there.
Great. So
Should
we
be a
could
light agenda the next
move-
meeting, Mayor.
Great. So we will move on to the final hearing of citizens. I don't need to repeat the whole spiel again. Is there anybody online?
No hands raised.
Okay. Anybody here? I see nobody here. Nope. Interested in talking? All right. Well then, we can close the hearing of citizens. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good night. Happy Easter, everybody.
Yes, happy
Passover.
Easter,
Oh, gosh.
Passover, whole 9 yards.
Is he performing?
Recording
Is he going to
stopped.
the planning board? I didn't see him.